Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, we have a video capture card. USB-C to HDMI, 1080p, 60 frame per second, high definition acquisition support. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so I needed a webcam solution for my computer, and this hopefully does the trick. So anyways, I got this on Amazon, and it only had 21 ratings of about 4.5 stars. So it's kind of one of those things where, well, it's all about how much do you really want to spend, and can you actually buy cheaper, or should you buy the really expensive one for like 180 bucks? So, or more. They can get quite pricey. So anyways, so this is the little unit. It's got an HDMI connection there for your camcorder or DSLR, and your Type-C here. It also has a converter to go Type-C to USB-A. Okay. Now, of course, my 8 ports are filled up on my Mac Mini. One goes for my hub, and the other one is direct connection for my USB interface. So we will not be using this part, at least not for today's testing. But we will be using this on the Type-C because that's where it belongs anyhow. Faster data transmission lines, etc., etc., right? It kind of reminds me of basically an HDMI to monitor out adapter, but it is an actual capture card, so a little bit different circuitry, right? So let's see if it was worth the $25.99 in tax that I paid for this sucker. So I'm going to shut the camera off here, and then we're going to go hook this sucker up, and we're going to finish our recording on the Mac. So it's going to be kind of a interesting thing. So instant for you. Okay guys, I am back, and I've done a bunch of testing while I was gone. That's why it's instant for you. Haha. So it seems on the Mac Mini I'm getting about 10 minutes and 56 seconds of record time, and then it cuts off. It's like, okay. There's no timer setting for QuickTime. However, here's a few things you need to know about this adapter. Is it worth the $26? Well, we're still out to full debate on that, but for now we're going to say yes, because as long as I can keep my video on QuickTime just under 11 minutes, hey, we're good. So it kind of lets you know that you're out of time. I don't know. I haven't heard any complaints about this thing shutting down on people, but mind you, I haven't read anybody that used this on a Mac. Funny thing is, the instructions don't mention Apple at all, although the website ad does mention macOS. It doesn't say what macOS, but just macOS. It's plug and play. There are no drivers, so it shouldn't make a difference. I actually had this happen before. My dad's Logitech camera, now he used it on an older Mac, so he never had issues. I used it on 2 newer Macs than what he ever had at the time, and I had issues with his Logitech camera would shut off after X amount of time for some reason. No idea why, just it does it, and yet there's no timer built into QuickTime that I can find, okay? So it's kind of a, but on a PC, I can use the Logitech camera of his, run it forever, you know, which I should be able to do the same with this little adapter, which we're going to find out in further testing. So there will be an update review. But so far, I can say this. In swinging around and looking at the picture on screen to the picture on my camera, if I got close enough and put my face right to the camera, well, it's kind of deceptive. The LCD doesn't really show the grain that easily. But I do see a little bit of grain on my main picture on my screen, okay? And I do have to change some lighting around in here. Obviously, my camera is sunken in behind a speaker, so there's not a lot of light getting to the camera itself, which does make a difference on how much grain you'll get in your picture. The other thing I did was I actually lowered my quality of my camera because it was at its top setting, which may be too much for this card to handle. So I put it on regular high quality 1080p 60p, and we'll try that. Failing that, we'll try 30p and see what happens. But either way, they say it can go to 4K, but it's kind of one of those things. But that's what concerns me about the instructions, is the instructions do not mention macOS. It only mentions the whole PC thing. And as far as RAM goes, for storage and RAM, I've got all of that. I don't have an NVIDIA video card. I've got whatever Apple's using in their built-in stuff on the SoC on this thing, so whatever. It's an M1 machine. But funny that it has a similar thing to the Logitech cameras, even on older Macs, where the Logitechs can cut out on the 2013 and 2015 iMacs, where, I don't know, it just doesn't cut out on the PC. But I am going to try this on my PC. Because to be honest with you, I don't care if I use this thing on my Mac or if I use it on my PC. If it's going to be better on the PC than the Mac, then fine. Because I have 12 gigs of video RAM in my PC. And yeah, it's dedicated video as well, which, I don't know, maybe there's some differences too. I mean, I haven't seen I don't even think I've seen any reviewers talking about using any of these type of adapters yet on a M1 machine. So how they're going to behave under Monterey, we don't really know until, well, obviously now we've got something, and I'm at 4 minutes, but I got time. So as far as the audio goes, you do have 3 options in my case. We have the digital audio, which should be the built-in mics on the camera, but my camera will not output its mics through that HDMI cable into the capture. So I have to use an external mic or my USB interface. I've chosen my studio mic, which is my Shure MP5 condenser mic, and that's where we're getting the audio from. I can use my Focusrite Scarlett box because I can do the whole studio stuff and different mics and better mics through it and blah blah blah. Okay, so I do get that as an option too, and it'll work. Just for some reason, even though the option is there to use the digital mics in the camera, it doesn't allow it to push the signal through. I don't know why. Okay, now the average star rating on this was given a 4.5 out of 5. Now obviously there hasn't been that many people. It's just under 100 people that bought this thing for this actual adapter that I'm using today. So we do have some mixed reviews too. One person put it at 3 out of 5 because it makes a better backup thing than anything else. You know, but we don't know what kind of camera they're using. I'm using a Sony camera. I can't remember the model off the top of my head, but it's my only Sony camcorder I've had for the last number of years. It's 9.2 megapixel. It does top-end 1080p Ultra HD. It's a really fantastic camcorder. And I would rather use the camcorder for doing my videos with, where I want to use it as a camcorder and put things on screen, so I also get the bigger picture of things and everything else. But I may have to transfer this to my PC and use it there, because like I said, after 10 minutes and 56 seconds, it actually cuts out on my Mac with using QuickTime. There are other camera programs that I'll have to try to see in the long haul. Is there ones that will just work at a much longer time rate? Okay. Now the default video setup through QuickTime is going to be on high, which means you will only be able to export at 720p. If you go to maximum quality, not only does your picture screen grow on your screen, but you'll be able to export at 1080p. Now that's with a 1080p camera. If you have a 4K camera, of course, you will be able to go to 4K, because QuickTime will record up to 4K if it has a 4K camera input. So not a big deal there. Where it comes in with this adapter, at least with my camcorder, I am not able to use my built-in digital mics through the cable going through. Because when you're using the camcorder, you're not recording. You don't hit the record button. You just open it up, plug in your cable, poof, it's like magic. It's on screen. Okay, and everything's good to go. So we're at 7-minute mark. I want to do an audio test for you guys. Tell me what you guys think. Now my Shure mic is plugged into a Type-C bus with an adapter, so because my cable is actually USB-A, so I have a USB-A to C adapter. That's on my one port, and this is plugged direct Type-C only, because as you know, we do get an adapter with this to go to Type-A, but I can't use it. Both my ports are full. I'm just going to do one of my own songs. I wanna serve you, Lord, for the rest of my days. I want to be like Jesus. I wanna make the lame to walk and the blind to see. Open up the Anyways, let me know what you guys think. This one's on you because I'm going to have to wait until I play it back. See what it sounds like. But, nonetheless, I like the adapter so far. Not thrilled that it cuts off after 10 minutes and 56 seconds, but that could be a Mac thing. We're going to find that out. So, do stay tuned for an update review. As per use on a Macintosh, I will put this thing I'm getting pretty good picture, even though I still got to mess around with my studio lights to brighten that up a bit. Little disappointed I can't use the built-in mics, even though the selection is there. So that's something that's kind of odd. Kind of a little curious that they would say macOS in the ad, but yet in the instructions it doesn't mention anything about a Mac. So that could be where it's cutting off. That could be the issue. I am going to try it on the PC Tower and try and cut an extremely long video and see how well that works. So there will be an update review to follow this one, and it's going to be shortly. Okay, it's going to be probably, I don't know, very, very quick. Actually, you know what? How about we do this? I'm going to cut the video off here, and we are going to go and hook it to the PC. I'm going to do some more thorough testing and see if it craps out on my PC. If it doesn't, we know it's a Mac thing. And that even though it says no Mac, maybe it just doesn't get along with a Mac. So how about that? How about we do it that way? Because I think that would be a much simpler solution. Anyways, instant for you! And we'll have the final word right quick for you. Okay? Don't go away. Okay, guys, so we are back, and I'm actually back on the Mac right now. Finishing this off in 1080p. So, here's the deal. I reread the instructions, of course. Good idea to read both sides thoroughly. Turns out they do mention macOS. But, of course, they don't list a version. Whatever. As mentioned, Logitech cameras have always given me problems on Mac for trying to get high runtime out of them. They seem to crap out a lot on me, right? Even the 1080p Logitechs. Because that's been my only experience with Logitech is 1080p. Anyways, but on a really old Mac, because I used them on a 2013 and 2015 iMacs, and they were crumbing out on me, whereas my father had it on his Mac Pro Tower, which was really old, and he never had a problem with that Logitech camera. But I've always had problems, so what do you do? Anyways, did some thorough testing on my PC. Now here's the deal. On the Mac, I can record in 1080p, 60 frames per second. No problem, like I'm doing right now, okay? But after 10 minutes and 57 seconds, it shuts down. We don't know why, it just does, okay? So I moved it over to my PC Tower, which is on steroids and a half, and it has its own separate video card and all that. So I'm not even counting video card. I mean, the Mac Mini M1, way more than enough horsepower to run this stuff. But it's a typical Mac thing, it seems, with 1080p in my experience, that it's just not a good thing to do. But first time ever using a camcorder, which is working no differently than a webcam, except a much better front and rear ground. So you can have your cake and eat it too, but you can only have it for 10 minutes and 57 seconds on the Mac. On the PC, when you try to do 1080p 60 frames per second, the picture will flicker, okay? Because you're also using an adapter to go from Type C to Type A, right? Because I don't have Type C ports on my PC Tower. So that could be where the reduction is happening, where it doesn't like 1080p 60 frames per second when you're using the adapter. Okay, so you may want to buy a version of this thing with just Type A 3.0 or whatever on it, and maybe you'll be fine. I can't tell you for sure without buying one of those adapters myself. However, there's way too many options out there, so you guys, it's up to you. Anyhow, recording at 1080p 30 frames per second on the PC, this thing just will not give up the ghost. It keeps running hassle-free. So I went back to the Mac, and I just finished doing a video, and it had no problem just going way past that 11-minute mark, and 12 minutes, and so on. It's going to work fine at the high setting, which is actually 720p is what you'll be able to export as and record. So even though your camera may be trying to input at 1080p, you're only going to be able to record at 720. Okay, and you can go continuous with this adapter on your Type-C port, which you should be able to do the same on the Type-A. Okay, and so if you have a Type-A, you should be fine at 720. Now that's kind of a letdown because this adapter is supposed to be good for 4K. And believe it or not, the seller actually emailed me today asking me how my adapter is doing, and yet I just got it today, and it's like, do I have a mouthful for him? So we're going to see what happens next after I finish talking with him on email. Because to me, this adapter is rated for 4K. It should have no problems, Mac or PC, because it is saying it works for both. The instructions do actually say both. Okay, pretty raunchy specs are required for the PC, which is kind of weird. But, well, it should run on something lower end, is what I'm saying. Okay, it says it can do 4K. And my Mac will record in 4K if I have a 4K camera input. It's not a problem. QuickTime will do that. Now, even though they don't mention QuickTime for the Mac OS, that's fine. Okay, they do list a number of different programs, which are all programs that I don't even use. Okay, so I may have to do some more testing on those programs to see if they're any better than QuickTime, but it shouldn't really make any big difference. But we'll have to see in the end. However, majority of Mac users are always using QuickTime to record with their webcams. It's just so less hassle and such a really nice program to work with. You can even do your own editing right within QuickTime, which is fantastic if you wanted to. But we do get continuous runtime, no hassle, 720p, so that's your high rating on QuickTime on a Mac. It'll just keep going, and that's fine. So whether you're on an M1, you should be no problem. Older Macs, you should have no problem on an older Mac, but you should be able to record in 1080p, even 30 frames per second on the Mac. But you don't have that control. That's the problem. The Mac accepts whatever input it gets, and then it deals with it from there. So it doesn't give me the option on QuickTime to say, okay, I want to record in 720p 60 frames per second, for example, or 1080p 30 or 1080p 60. I get high or maximum. That's it. Maximum is 1080p and up, okay, to 4K. And then, of course, the high is fixed at 720 and below. So even though I'm inputting the signal right now in 1080p, I'm recording in 1080p. It'll save as 1080p. If I go back and I switch this to 720p, of course, it's going to really be funked because I'm mixing files at that point with 1080s and 720s, and it kind of goes weird on the video. That's why I'm trying to record everything in 1080p here. So, what is my final word on this? And I think we can justify this as the final word. If you are a Mac user, okay, you are definitely going to be stuck at recording at 720p when you're using a camcorder, at least, okay, like I am. I'm using a Sony camcorder that is 9.2 megapixel. You are limited to 720p continuous frames, okay, of whatever it's going to do for you, and you can just keep recording endlessly, okay. If you want to go 1080p, you have 10 minutes and 57 seconds, and it shuts down your program. Like it automatically stops the recording, which is kind of, I don't know how it does it, but it does it, so who knows. On the PC side, you will have to use the adapter that they supply to convert from Type-C to Type-A. Now, one thing I will like to mention is it is a little finicky, so with the adapter on here, so don't just, open up your camera and already have this plugged in, type of thing. You're going to actually have to launch your program, then plug the thing into the USB bus, because it may or may not work. At least this is my experience on Windows 11. Windows 10, you should be able to just hook everything up, hit the button for the camera, OBS, whatever, and just go. Okay, but my experience with my PC, I'm running Windows 11. I actually had to make sure that the camera was turned on, cable was hooked on, plugged into this, hit the button for the camera on my Windows computer, get that launched, and then plug this in. Then it fired up the picture on screen for me. Kind of weird. Now, at 1080p 60 frames per second, the PC flickers. Not cool. We're putting input at 1080p 60, and we have the ability to select it, but we can only use 1080p 30 frames per second, max. So even on a 4K camera, it may give you the same problems. So even though you'll input at 4K, you may only get to be able to record it without it garbaging out on you at a lesser resolution. So this is kind of, I don't know. It's kind of like you get what you pay for in a sense, but I don't know. It should go 4K. I can't fathom what is going on with these computers, with this device, and why it's behaving the way it does. Now, the other thing, your camcorder, built-in mics, okay, and that is probably going to go for your DSLR as well. Okay, I can't say for sure, but at least this, Mac or PC, my internal mics, even though they're in the list that I can use them, it will not allow audio through the cable to go into the Mac or the PC with the built-in mics on the camera. However, if you have an external mic plugged in, like I do, okay, on both computers, you can just use those and your audio and your video will be recorded. It won't be a problem, okay? So that is something else to be aware of with this device. Even though the option is there to select your mics for your camera, they will not be active for some reason. We don't know why. That's something else I got to talk to the seller about to say, hey, what's up with this? Anyways, where am I going to put this as my final verdict? Well, let's just say, kids, I'm not overly impressed. Okay, at least not for the Mac side of things. I am somewhat impressed with the PC, but not impressed at the same time because I've got 1080p 60 frames per second on my camera. It's only going to allow me to do 1080p 30 on my PC, continuous. And of course, we have the finicky connection to the PC. For some reason, when you plug this adapter in, it's a little finicky to get your picture up. Whereas the Mac, flawless. Plug it into your Type-C, you're done, that's it. Poof, you got a picture. Okay, so it kind of functions better in some ways on the Mac than on the PC, and then vice versa on other things, right? So my final verdict is this, before my camera junks out on me. I'm going to put this thing at 3 out of 5. That's where I'm at with it. And if you want to buy it, do so. You don't. What am I going to do with this thing? I don't know. Well, I'm going to talk to the seller first. Meantime, thanks so much for watching. Do stay tuned for more, and we're going to put